Empty Epsilon scenario writing, custom button, side mission. For this video, let's start in the construct environment function. The first thing we want to do is we want to retain the angle we used to place the enemy station. So to that end, we're going to create this variable and we'll use it here when we're invoking the vector from angle function. We also want that to be true so that the angle that we get back corresponds to an angle that we would use when we're flying a ship. We also need a distressed freighter. I should take this opportunity to mention that even though you see me running under Mac OS, the developer does not officially support Mac OS for Empty Epsilon, just so you know. You can compile it. It is open source, but it's not directly supported. Anyway, the distressed freighter is going to be faction Arlenians. We're going to set the template to personnel freighter 1. We're going to set the coordinates using vector from angle based on the enemy station angle that we stored earlier. Essentially, we're going to add between 120 and 240 to it so that the distressed freighter is on the other side of the circle from the Kraylor. The Arlenians and the Kraylor are enemies. The Arlenians and the Human Navy are neutral. The other bit about this is that the distance is still going to be between 50,000 and 80,000. And once again, we're going to set it to true so that the angle that we're using corresponds to the angle that you would use whenever you're piloting a ship. So we're going to actually set the position based on the coordinates we just calculated, and we're going to tell the freighter to be idle. Now that we have the freighter added to the environment, let's update the update function. So we're going to have a function defined that handles all the distressed freighter processing. So there's the line that's going to invoke the function. And now let's define the function. We want this particular mission to be enabled after a certain amount of time. So we're going to set a timer so that we can do just that, have this mission show up later in the scenario. For testing purposes, though, we're going to set the time to 5 seconds in the future. So our if block says if distressed freighter time, which is the variable we're defining right here, is nil, then we define it as get scenario time, which is the current clock, plus 5 seconds. This is temporary. When we get done, we'll set it to probably 5 minutes, which is 60 times 5, which is 300 seconds. Now we'll check it. If get scenario time, which is the current clock, is greater than the timer that we just set, then we're going to take some action. We're going to enable the distressed freighter mission. So we'll first set up a loop to go through all the active players. That's what that for I, P in I pairs. I being the index, P being the player. I pairs is the keyword for integer pairs processing, which is set up in Lua specifically for tables that are indexed using an integer. Get active player ships is the function that Empty Epsilon provides. It gives you a list of active player ships. In the loop, we're going to say if p.distressed freighter message is nil, that means we haven't sent it yet, then set it to sent at the end of this if block. Now, the information that we want to send to the player is not, hey, it's over there, go there. What we want to say is, we got a signal coming from this direction. We'll give them a direction, but they'll have to go out and explore to find the freighter. So we're going to calculate the bearing from the home station to the distressed freighter using angle heading, a function available in utils.lua. We're also going to use a Lua function called math.floor to make sure that the results of angled heading is an integer. We're going to discard any fractional portion of that value. And we're going to add it to the ship log. I just copy pasted from what I did earlier so you don't have to watch me type. There's the bearing to freighter, which we're going to use to put in the substitution parameter %s in that string so that we send the message faint distress call from Arlenian freighter detected on bearing blah. Please assist if you can. Please investigate and assist, whatever. Go help them. Once we've either sent the message or not sent the message, by the way, if you don't put that if block there to check the message, you'll get a string of messages coming out because this is in the update loop. So this function gets called over and over again. So make sure you do the check and set thing like that. We're going to put in a custom button. If that string render_aid button.rel, rel is short for relay, if it's nil, then we'll define it, and then we're going to add custom button to the relay console. The reference is that p.render_aid button rel. The text on the button is render_aid. And the function, of course, is what we're going to define here anonymously / locally. Once again, we're going to do string.format on noString to give Sirius Proton a global context. And then we're going to go out to a function render_aid and pass the current player as a parameter. So let's define the function render_aid so that we can do the thing that we're supposed to do when the button is clicked. So the first thing we want to do is set the Sirius Proton global context. Now we're going to check the distance from the player to the distressed freighter. Now, distance is another function that's available in utils.lua, which you'll find you use a bunch of those a lot of times, so you probably want to always include utils.lua. If it's less than 5,000, which is 5 units, 1,000 equals 1 unit, in case you haven't picked up on that, we're going to remove this custom button. Now, it says custom, which means you can remove custom whatever you've done, whether that's a button or info or message or whatever. You just specify the reference and it gets removed. So that's the first thing we do is if you're close enough, we remove that button. If you're not close enough, nothing happens. We're going to add to ship log. This again is a copy paste from what I did earlier. We're going to say you've successfully rendered aid, and they're going to give you 100 points. They're grateful. See, there is the parameter to pass in distressed freighter call sign. Now that's the message you get when you click the button. That goes to the ship log, but there's some other messaging that we need to add to. Specifically, whenever you talk to the flagship and you ask them what is our mission, we want to be sure that we give them the appropriate mission based on the before case, as in before the distressed freighter mission is activated, and after the distressed freighter mission is activated. So comm source is the player in this context. It's not P, it's comm source, because we're in the comms context. If it's nil, that means we haven't activated the distress freighter message. We use whatever we've got. If it's not nil, we add on this extra stuff where you've also been asked to help a distressed Arlenian freighter. All right, that takes care of the what is our mission question. Now we want to add another button that they can click when they have activated their distressed freighter mission. So we'll check again. If the distressed freighter message is not equal to nil, that means it's been sent, and thus the distressed freighter mission is active. Then we want to put another button out there, and it's going to say, where is the distressed Arlenian freighter? And then, of course, in the function, we're going to give them some information about the distressed Arlenian freighter. Like we did before, we're not going to tell them directly, but what we will do is we will calculate the bearing to the distressed freighter from the home station. And we're also going to calculate the bearing to the player ship so that they have some comparison between the bearing from the station to them and the bearing from the station to the distressed freighter, and they can do some kind of math maybe to figure out where to go. We will put all of that in a message. There it is. I copy-pasted so you don't have to watch me type. The signal from the distressed Arlenian freighter came to %s, the substitution parameter, which is going to be the name of the home station. On bearing %s, that's going to be the parameter of the calculated bearing from the home station to the freighter. Then the other one was, and bearing from the home station to you is this. And so those are the 4 parameters that go in that message. So I think everything is updated. let's test to see if it does what we expect it to do. So start server, development intro. We take the default level of difficulty, put a player out there, take all the consoles, go unpause, and let's see what it looks like on relay. There's the first message, and there's the message whenever the mission gets activated. It's on, oh yeah, wailing on the render aid button does nothing because we didn't put any code to handle that situation. So let's move ourselves over to the Arlenian freighter. You'll notice it's orange. The GM gets that color. The players don't get that color. For players, they're either red, green, or blue. So we click the render aid button. We got 100 points, and there's the message.